Whoa, here we go. God bless you and welcome in fellowship. I am so pickled tink. I got the best of God's people. I'm at the best in this house right now. So I'm going to have a word of prayer because the subject matter of this teaching is to help us to walk even greater with God, right? I would like that. That's like a good idea. All right. So, I mean, how many are totally satisfied? I'm where I need to be. No, you need to be what? Well, God loves me the way I am. No, He expects us to grow. You don't want to have a child who stays the same, still the same since day one, and he's now 30 and he's got changed diapers. You kind of like expect him to grow a little bit. Father, thank you for the greatness of your word. Thank you for helping me to teach your word this day, this moment, this time, for those here and for those who will hear this teaching, that their lives may truly blossom into the beauty and majesty that you, dwelling within them, can be brought forth. So for this time and for their lives, Father, I thank you as you work mightily in me to bring forth the greatness of your word and help us to walk in the footsteps of your firstborn from the dead, our risen and returned Lord Jesus, your anointed. Okay. What does it mean to be out of control? It's my control tank is empty. No, that's not. What does it mean to be out of control? Give me an example of someone out of control. Does anyone know what out of control means? So, is this a good thing to be out of control? All right. Is it a bad thing? Is it good to be out of control half the time? Is it good to be out of control 3/4 of the time? How much should a person be out of control? You're one of these questions, these things that are coming to your mind? What does it mean to be out of control? We say these phrases, but do we know what we're saying? What does it mean to be out of control? All right? If I'm driving my car, when would it be a time where I'm out of control? If you're driving your car and you see someone in front of you and you can say, that guy is out of control. How would you know? I see cops do that. Going from one lane to the other and back and forth. No. So what does it mean to be out of control? I mean, how would you spot someone driving a car that was out of control? Now, I'm seriously, you got to think about this. Drunk, okay. All right, drunk. Speeding is out of control. How many have ever sped and still stayed in control? So if the car was doing one of these numbers, would that be called out of control? All right. So if you're driving the car and you look and this car hits the car and the car goes like this, so what does out of control mean? From the person who is out of control. You in the car watching the guy? Is the car out of control or the driver out of control? The guy driving is out of what? He has no control. The car is just going crazy and he has no way to make it straighten out. So losing control, what does it mean when you have no control? When do you want this to happen? When do you want to lose control of your car? How many here want to do it half the time? How about 25% of the time? How many times when you drive your car, do you want to be out of control? And for how long? For a second, lose control? Okay, it's more fun, right? When everything, it's more fun when you're heading into oncoming traffic and like, oh, that's so much fun. Then you get back in. It's really thrilling. Go off a cliff, it's thrilling. No. You don't want to have that many times where you lose control. Does everybody agree with me? All right, some of you don't sound like you really agree with me. How often do you want to lose control driving a car? Never? Never. And you? Never? So the key here is the cell phone. When the cell phone rings and you go to answer your cell phone, now the reason the cell phone rang, the moment it rings, you don't have control because it rang without your authority. The fact that it rang is something you had no what? Control over. And because you had no control over that frickin' phone, tried to answer it, first find out where it's at while you're driving down the freeway. You see the problem? Not having control of that resulted in you not having control of your car, which resulted in a possible what? Accident. If I'm driving my car, my cell phone is off. Good luck trying to reach me while I'm driving. I don't want to lose what? Control. Oh, by the way, if someone calls me, my phone will tell me they called. I call them back. Does that make sense? Either you're being controlled or you're controlling. It's very simple. Either you're being controlled or you're controlling. Is that making sense? So, what we don't understand is that we're supposed to be the Azirs of God. Yes or no? So if you're an Azir of God, how much are you supposed to be in control? All the time. Repeat after me. All the time. Right? So, is God in control? All the time. And up to the point where he put us in charge. He will not intercede because he's delegated it to who? Us. This is where the problems come in. Because we're expecting God to do our job and his job. No, it doesn't work like that. God does his job and you do what? Your job. Jesus knew what his job was. He had to ask God, is there any other way? Is there any other way? God said, nope. Okay. He had a job to do. He was God's Azir on what? On earth. Well, he left. Who did he put in charge? Usins, right? We're now the Azirs. We're kind of like naive, ignorant, inexperienced, but that's how we learn. God's not going to give us more than we can handle. So let's go into 2 Corinthians. So is God in control? Yes. Does he want us to grow and develop? Yes. But how does he do that? By allowing us to be challenged but not defeated. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I said second, I meant first. It's my fault. Yes, 1 Corinthians. It's right before second. All right, verse 13. Chapter 10, verse 13. There hath no temptation taken you but such as common to man. What is a temptation? A temptation is where your emotions try to override logic. Good control. Temptation is where you're tempted to lose control, where you don't know what's going to happen next. But God is faithful, who will not suffer, that's the word allow, you to be tempted above that you are what? Able. So when you're trying to teach a child how to walk, you hold its what? hands, yes? And then you help him walk. Then you get to the point where he stands on his own and he tries to walk by himself. And you let him fall down. Yes? You may give him some extra padding on his butt so he falls down on his butt. Maybe put 2 diapers on there or whatever so it doesn't hurt so bad. You don't take broken glass and scatter it all over the floor. You get all the stuff out of the way, make sure the table is not in the way so he falls down and hit his head. But you want him to walk. You know he's going to fall down. That's okay. He's got a very short distance of center of gravity. Unlike us, we fall down, we get hurt. That little guy ain't going to get hurt that bad. He's too close to the ground. Understanding that God is in control and God wants us to grow. He wants us to take responsibility and to grow. So everything that happens to you is not going to be more than you can what? Handle, ever. Isn't that cool? Just that alone is like, God will not allow you to be in a situation that you can't handle. So, what's the problem? We lose control. Why do we lose control? Because we're not in control. All right, there's 2 things to realize. There's that which is under your control and that which is what? Not under your control. All right, now, this happened in California. Guy was driving down the road and there was an earthquake and the freeway he was on broke in half and fell away. Now, he could do one of 2 things. Have his mouth fall open and keep driving to the edge and go over. Right? I mean, can you imagine you're on the freeway and all of a sudden half the freeway falls away? Would that have an impact on you? So what did he do? Well, he hit the brake and turned the car sideways so all 4 tires acted like a brake. And it skidded sideways up to the brake. And he didn't go over. If he had gone over, he would have totally lost what? But as long as he was in control, he spun that car as it was going. He just turned it sideways, hit the brakes so the tires wouldn't move, and make sure that the car went sideways and then stopped. If he tried to stop it this way, he would have went over the what? Over the edge. And he would definitely lost control. God gives you be in charge all the time. God will not put you in a situation you cannot stay in control of. Then why do things happen during the day that you cannot control? Because we don't realize what control means. We expect God to do our job as well as His. It's not the way it works. How many feel they're in control of their life? People say, well, I'm in control. Really? What are you going to do tomorrow at 12 o'clock? What are you going to do a week from now on Thursday at 4 o'clock? Don't know. What do you mean you're not in control? You don't even know what you're going to do tonight. In other words, you don't even have control of your life. That's scary. So what happens is, it's like driving a car and letting go of the steering wheel. Because you have no plans. You're not in control. If you look at your whole 24-hour period, what are you doing? Whole 24 hours, what are you doing? You're in control? 2 hours, you're sleeping. But you can't control yourself when you're sleeping. Yes, you can. Well, for me, it's like 4.5 hours. But anyway, when I'm sleeping, can I control my snoring? Yes. The idea that you can't control your snoring is ridiculous. I control my snoring. You can do that. It just takes practice. So when I'm sleeping, I don't snore. But understand, you've got to work toward being what? In control. You are in control. You have to take charge of what's going on in your life. Otherwise, someone else is in charge. God gives you, it doesn't give you two choices. You give yourself the choices. You say, I either do this or I do that. Yes? That means you have no control. You have to know exactly what's coming up. Notice that Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen before it happened. How is that possible? When you think like God and you see from God's perspective, all of a sudden you see exactly what's coming up. You can see it real clear. You begin to understand what motivates people. You know when things are going to be a challenge. You prepare for it. Everything that's going to happen, God already knew ahead of time. And he's like, hey, would you like to know? No, don't talk to me, God. I got it. What, would you like a little hint? No. I got it. We don't. You have access to God to know how many things? All things. Yet somehow we're going to do it ourselves. The more you think like God, the more God can give you knowledge, wisdom, and what? Understanding. How many like that? Now, if you're a good mechanic, you know when your car is going to fail, yes? You say, I'm not driving this car today. There's a problem with it. Most of us just get in the car and go, well, I believe God. I'm just going to drive, even though my car is falling apart, even though the engine's ready to blow up, even though the radiator's all clogged, even though the tires are almost flat, God will get me there. No, you ask God first. Who do you have access to? God. You don't tempt God. Let's go into Luke. Chapter 4, verse 1. Jesus being full of pneuma hagion, right? He's filled to overflowing. It's filled. How many are spoken tongues? You are filled. It comes up and out. How many receive word of knowledge, word of wisdom? It comes up and out. It's the filling to overflowing. When it says filled, there's plero and pletho. Plero is to the surface, pletho is to overflowing, and it comes in manifestation. And was led by the Spirit, so he got by revelation. So he goes to God. Should I go into the wilderness? God said no. Should I go in the wilderness now? God said no. Can I go in the wilderness now? God said now, go. So it's not going, it's when God tells you to. God will save your life. God will protect you if you do what he says. When Elijah was in the wilderness, when there was no rain, God told Elijah to go where? To the brook Cherith. And what? The birds would what? Feed him. So he goes there. Did the birds feed him? They brought him meat, chicken legs and turkey legs, and bread. And he's like, and he drank at the drink. That's pretty cool. He ate basically the king's food. But then the brook dried up. He didn't go, God, fix the creek. God, fix the creek. Fix it. No. He goes, God, what do I do? Move. Move. Get away. So he left there and he went to Zarephath. You've got to be ready to move when God says so. Don't command God what he's supposed to do. You go to God and ask him, what do I do? Is that making sense? How many here want to be in control? So the object here is to have access to who? God. Think his what? Thoughts. See from his perspective. And when you do, God will open up other things for you to see. And you're going to go, Wow. And then more and more. So you can be a more than what? Conqueror. Not a conqueror, a more than conqueror. Does that make sense? Everybody go like this. Okay, good. Just making sure. So what's tempting? Tempting is getting you to go by your intellect, your emotions, to get you to respond without having control. What do you do when you're in a skid? When your car goes into a skid and you're going sideways, what do? How do you right your car? And what everybody do? When your car skids to the right, what do? You turn your wheel to the left. Your car's going to spin. When you skid to the right, you turn the wheel to the right, and the car rights itself. In an airplane, and the airplane's going, is losing control of it, it's going like a lumshavak, or it's doing one of these numbers and you lost control. How do you regain control? Let go of the yoke, and the aircraft will right itself. Don't touch the controls. When you have a situation, go immediately to who? To God. Connect up with Him. God will tell you what to do. God will never put you in a situation you cannot what? Handle. He doesn't want anyone to die. Christ already died for you. Don't worry about that part. You're here to walk in the victory, not the defeat. I know walking with defeat's important, but defeat, and that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So what's the secret? To get God's thoughts, to see from God's perspective. Chapter 4, verse 3, and the devil said unto him, if thou be the Son of God. You get that all the time, don't you? Are you really a son of God? Are you really? Did Jesus' hometown believe he was a son of God? Who at this time believed he was a son of God? No one else. If thou be the Son of God, command these stones to be made bread. So he's going to command a miracle without asking God. You cannot do that. If I'm hungry, I don't command stones to be made bread. You ask God. And Jesus answered him, saying, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but what? Every word of God. What's more important, eating or having God's will at that moment? Elijah didn't say out of Kings, when the brook dried up, God, fix the brook. No. He went to God, and God says, I'm not fixing anything. Move. I know it's hard to believe, but God's a lot smarter than us. Is that making sense? All right. How many want more control of your life? All right. How many want more control in your life? All right. What's the secret? You got to have God's what? Thoughts. Got to have God's what? Images. And you got to see from whose perspective? God's. Would you like a secret? How many would like from this day on to have more control than ever before? Here we go. Number one, you have to have integrity. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You got to have God's type of integrity. God will never break his what? Word. So speak very little. Do not speak and not do. If you say something and you don't do it, you have no integrity. Number one, you have to be under the salt covenant. Not taking the salt, it's by speaking the word in agape. It's speaking the truth. If you can't, it's not best to tell the truth, then say nothing. Don't lie, just don't say anything. Hold your integrity. Does that make sense? Someone asks you a question you don't want to answer. Don't. Change the subject. Ask them a question. They won't ask you what you're going to do. They'll answer your question. So ask them a question. Just get out of the position. When people ask Jesus questions, what do? He asks them what? Who's in control? He is. People ask you questions, you ask them a question. And as they answer your question, then they'll be able to see from your perspective. I don't answer everybody's question. It's none of their business. I ask them a question. Does that make sense? So number one, you got to have integrity. Whatever you say, you're going to do. Number two, don't answer everybody's questions. Most of them don't even want the answer anyway. They just want to find fault with you. People don't like you to grow. They want you to stay the same. God doesn't want you to stay the same. He wants you to grow. Don't worry about what other people think. I could care less what people think. Everybody got that? What's the first thing? Integrity, right? What you say you're going to do, you do. Well, what happens? And so what happens if you're supposed to be there at 10? When should you leave? Takes a half an hour to get there. 9:15. Why? What happens if you have a flat tire? What happens if there's traffic? You've got to stay what? In control. To make what you say come to pass. God speaks of things that are not as if they what? Are, and they come to what? So what happens? God has what? Control. What happens if this happens? God's already got that covered. What happens if this happens? God's got it control. You've got to be just like who? And God is dwelling within you. You have His thoughts, His perception, His reality is yours. So God's going to show you what's going to happen. And you go, I see that. And when you tell other people, they go, no. God, yeah, I'm sorry. People go, how did you know? Put this in here. Just put this. Not this way. You read it. Is that making sense? So now, does God have integrity? Yes. God sees the things that are not as if they what? Are. And then they what? Become. That God's already got the image. Everybody got this? So let's go into Ephesians. And in Ephesians chapter 6, chapter 5, I'm sorry. I want you to look at me. Look, are you ready? Right? Right? Do something. What am I doing? I'm imitating her. That's the Greek word mimetes. Right? I'm going to imitate her. You understand? Mimetes is to what? Imitate. It's translated follow in the English. I don't know what it is in Spanish. Chapter 5, verse 1. Be ye therefore imitators of what? God as dear children. You ever watch children imitate their parents? How many ever had many people, rugrats, curtain climbers, right? You ever seen them act like their mom and dad? Put on daddy's hat, put on mommy's high heels and lipstick and Walk like mommy. Right? They imitate. You're supposed to be imitators of who? God. This is why you have integrity. What you say you're going to do, you do. If God says it, is he going to bring it to pass? If God said it, it's going to come to pass, yes or no? You say it, it's supposed to come to pass. Why doesn't it? If you say something and it doesn't come to pass, what's wrong? You lost control. Don't lose control. Because if you don't have control and God don't have control, who's got control? Quit turning the adversary. Don't do an Eve and just give him all the power. Or you take charge. He'll take charge and ruin your whole day permanently. Has that got it? Either God's in control, you were in control, and if neither one of those, then you gave it over to the adversary. And he's not a nice guy. He just isn't. Be imitators of the adversary. No, be imitators of who? God. Be imitators of your mom and dad. No, be imitators of who? God. Be imitators of the rock stars. No, be imitators of who? Be imitators of the Kardashians. No, be imitators of who? God. Is that making sense? See it from God's perspective. Have God's priorities. Take what? Control. You don't have control, and God delegated it to you, then who's got control? God delegated it to Adam. Adam gave it to Eve. And she lost what? Control. Is it making sense? This is so intense. Jesus knew the word. He knew exactly what was going to come up next. He knew things 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 50 years ahead, 100 years ahead, 8,000 years ahead. He knew it all. Where did he get the information from? This has God's thoughts. This has God's images. This has the future. It has everything you need. Let's go into James. Chapter 1. Verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of your neighbor. No, let him ask of who? The psychiatrist. No, let him ask who? Who do you ask? God. That giveth to all men what? Liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given them. Let him ask in what? Pistis. The word pistis is the level of growth. Nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave, sea driven with wind and tossed. What happens when you're on the sea and it's driven with wind and tossed? You don't have what? Control. You've got to stay focused, like driving your car. Verse 8, a double-minded man is unstable in how many of his ways? Why? Because he has no what? Control. Chapter 1 of 2 Peter. Verse 2, kadis, that's identity, yes? Chapter 1, verse 2, kadis, that's what? Identity. Who are you? You're God's what? Child. We're in the position of service as a slave with the goal of becoming God's what? Sons in manifestation. And what? Irini. Be added. No, be what? Multiplied to you. Through the what? Knowledge. Knowledge of what? Basketball. No. Sports. No. Knowledge of what? The latest TV series. No. The knowledge of what? God. That's what makes you extraordinary. Knowledge of who? And of who? Jesus, our Lord. Why? Because you're supposed to take his what? Place as an Nazir of God. Verse 3. Well, how do we learn this? Where do we go? How do we get the knowledge of God? Verse 3. According as his divine power hath given unto us all things. What does all things mean? All. For what purpose? To have God's knowledge, wisdom, and what? Understanding. To walk as who? Jesus did. That's the Kaddish. Through the knowledge of him that hath called us unto glory and what? Virtue. So where do you learn to be glorious and virtuous? From the word. What's the first step to stay in control? Speak the truth. Take responsibility. If you're present in any situation, who's in charge? I don't care if there's an earthquake. Everybody's freaking out, running around, totally out of control. Who's in charge? You are. God would not put you in that situation unless you could what? Handle it. Take charge. Where's God? Right. So if you got God in you, what puts you in a situation that you can overcome what? Everything. Cool, huh? People all want to be Superman and Batman, and I don't want to be Batman. I don't want to be Superman. I want to be like Christ. That's real. They're not. What's the first step? Integrity. Speaking to things that are not as if they are. You say it. You keep your word. You do everything that's required. God will do his part and bring it to pass. Stay in control. Repeat after me. Stay in control. If you're driving your car and you close your eyes, can you cause problems? Yes. Stay in control. All right. Let's look at this and let's look at this. All right. We're supposed to be imitators of who? God. Not imitators of anyone, not John Wayne. All right. We're not supposed to be imitators of, I forget what that guy's name is. The Kardashian's father or whatever, where he doesn't know if he's a guy or a girl and, whatever. Look, stay in control. Don't let the world influence you. You got to know who you are. The 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why. Who are you? What are you doing? When are you supposed to do something? Where are you supposed to do something? And why are you supposed to do it? You don't know those 5, you are not in control. And someone says to you, do this or do that. Nope. Explain to me why. I want to know why. Fill in some of the missing blanks. Don't tell me do this or do that. That's what? And that's it. People say, you need to do this. I go, and how am I supposed to do that? Ask how. Don't say no. Just tell me how. Right? You want to take charge? You're going to tell me what to do? All right, tell me how to do it. People don't know how. They just want you to do it. All right? They're going to tell you what to do. They don't know how to do it. You say, okay, you want me to do this? Tell me how. I listen to God. God gives knowledge and what? Wisdom. God tells me to do something. I ask him how. He gives it to me. That's word of wisdom. Someone wants to play God with me and tell me what to do, then you tell them not no. Maybe it might be God telling them. But damn it, tell me how. They want me to do it. Okay? Tell me how. Don't just tell me to do it. God doesn't do that. God tells me to do it and gives me what? How? If I got someone who's my boss, or he had hired me, and he wants me to do it his way, I say, okay. Apparently he knows more than me. So now you tell me how to do it. Well, I don't know how it works. Then why are you telling me what to do? If someone tells you what to do and they don't know how to get it done, don't even listen to them. You don't have to tell people no. They want you to do that. You go, okay, God tells me what to do, and he tells me what? How to do it. He gives me knowledge and wisdom. Does that make sense? God always gives knowledge and what? Wisdom. People just want you to do something. All right, I'll do what you say. Tell me how you want it done. They don't know. Just want you to do it. They have no wisdom, no understanding. And they realize it when they try and explain it to you, because they can't. They just can't. I never tell people no. I just say, well, how do you expect me to do that? Tell me how. They don't know enough. People are so brilliant in their own minds. They're legends in their own minds. Look, I stick with the word. This is the truth. This works, has worked for 8,000 years. This is still here. Where's Rome? How many nations that went against this no longer exist? How many people tried to destroy this no longer here? This is still here. This is the truth. Cool, huh? All right. Is God in control? Yes. Are we supposed to be imitators of God? Yes. So if we're going to say we're going to do something, we must do it. No more lies. You must have integrity just like God. Is that making sense? You're supposed to be imitators of God. So when someone looks at you and says, okay, now I know how God is. He's just like you. Is that a good thing? Are you truly representing God? Or can you do better? So what's the most important thing? What you say, you will do. Make sure what you say lines up with the word, by the way. If it does, then God's going to be there to help support it. If it doesn't, you're pretty much on your own. All right. So how does God do it? God first had the word where? In his mind. So how does God plan? How does he plan? Does God have the next 10,000 years planned? Yes. Does he know what's going to happen tomorrow? Yes. He has it all planned out. Wow, is he intense. How many here have the next year planned out? Next 6 months? Next 3 months? Next month? Next week? You have no what? Control. I can tell you by God's word what's going to happen 8,000 years from now. I can tell you by God's word what's going to happen in the next 5 years. God's got 24,000 years here. And most people don't know how to read it. So how does God begin planning? If he's going to stay in control, how many want to be in control? How many want to control like God controls? Right? If you're going to represent God, you're going to need to do it whose way? If you're going to imitate God, you got to do it whose way? Would you all like to know God's way? All right. And the crowd goes, wow. All right. So let's find out how God do it. How do God do it? Let's go to Genesis. Now, Genesis chapter 1. We'll start with verse 3. And God what? Said, let there be what? Light. And there became light. God spoke the things that were not as if they what? Are, and they what? Became. And God examined the light, that it what? Good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the what? First day. So God already had planned out, before he spoke, he had the whole day planned out. Yes? And when it lined up what it said, he said that is what? It was exactly what he had in his mind. So, verse 6, and God what? Said. And you'll notice that it's the first day, verse 8, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the what? Second day. So what God said came to pass exactly the way God wanted it on the second day. Well, how many days did he have planned out? All right, so we keep going. We have it. There's the first day. By the way, the Hebrew word for the first day is, guess what? First day. What did God call the second day? Second day. What did God call the third day? What do we call it? We name them after Greek and Roman gods. So how many days are there? How many days did God plan and then examine and said it was good? How many? 6. On the sixth day, God said, he examined it and found it was what? Good. Now, what happens after the sixth day? We're now into the seventh. On the sixth day was the last what? The last day, yes? And that's in 31. And God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was what? Very good. The whole week was right on. Each day he made a judgment. And the end of the week, he looked at the whole week and said, very good. And go to, this is the parable of the unjust steward. And that's in Luke. Chapter 16. Now watch carefully. We're looking at an Azir. The word steward is Azir. Verse 1. And he said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had an Azir. The word steward is Azir. And the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. Wasted means not done as expected by the rich man. God says he's rich, so that means a godly man. And he said unto him, how is it that I hear of thee? Give an account of thy what? Stewardship. For thou mayest no longer be what? Stewards. Wow. No longer be in his ear. That sucks. When this happened? The steward is not, the one in charge allows his steward every day of the week to make his own what? Decisions. He's his ear. When does the master examine? On the weekend. On the Sabbath day. The seventh day. You are responsible for every day of the week. You make the judgment whether it was good, godly, or not. But on the seventh day, you take the whole week to who? God. And have him examine your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, your Thursday, your Friday, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. Let God decide. And I go to God and say, God, how'd I do? I didn't do so good. And God gives you what? Reproof and what? Correction. You have to go to God at the end of the week and say, okay, this is what I did. And God will give you the reproof and what? Correction. In the morning, you should be working the word, yes? So the first thing up in the morning, you go to Facebook. No, you put your face in this book. This is where you go. Spend 45 minutes. Got it? 30 plus 10. Give it a little extra. Does that make sense? If you can make it to 40 minutes, cool. All right? Now you do your day, but you make sure you planned it out. When do you plan it out? When did God plan out the second day? Way before the first. He planned out the first before it began. You have to plan out your whole week. God planned out the whole week. When did he plan it out? Before the week began. So not only do you go to God with each week on the Sabbath, you go to him, how'd I do? From there, you get your reproof and correction. Now you plan the what? The next week. Well, it's expensive to get a planner. No, it's not. You can buy a journal. Thoughts come into your head, don't dwell on them, write them down so it don't distract you. Does that make sense? On my journals, I have my grass catcher. You know, like when you're mowing the lawn, the grass goes everywhere. This is stuff that happens during the day that comes in my mind. I write it down. Comes in my mind, I write it down. So it doesn't distract me. And I don't forget it. You need, wow, God didn't do that. Yes, he did. It is what? Written. What God did the first day, the second day, that he planned it out. Well, how are we being imitators of God? The same way. How many have daytimers? How many have journals? I put my thoughts in, I write them what? Down. Man shall not live by bread alone, but every word of what? God. So when I have the purposes of God, I write it, I rewrite it till it fits my heart, my soul, my mind. It doesn't disagree with the word. I need to align my heart, soul, and mind with it. So have I written out every principle of God? Yes. In my language, my heart, my soul, my mind. And I wrote it out. And every day I check, did I stay on target? All right, imagine this. You're driving the car. The guy beside you is keeping the map, right? He's got the map. He's tracking how close you are on target, right? And all of a sudden he takes the map and throws it out the window. Without that map, you've lost what? Control. How are you tracking? Are you getting closer or are you getting farther away? Are you on schedule? Why do we give up control all the time? When you lose control of your car, you are going by what? Emotions. We want our emotions to just go wild. Don't do that. You want to be all emotional? Make sure that there's a shear pin in your steering wheel. So after so many turns, it breaks off. Then you can have an exciting time when you're driving. Do you want to lose control? I think not. I always want to be in what? Control. But I always go to God to verify my control is correct, that I'm aligned with His Word. And if I'm not, then I make the adjustment. The problem is, other people don't want to make the adjustment, and that's perfectly okay. They don't want to make the adjustment. That's between them and God. I'm not worrying about it. I just let them know what the adjustment is. People don't want to do it, fine. But I need to be aligned with who? God, what? First. You need to be aligned with who? Your mommy and daddy? No. Your brother and sister? No. The Kardashians? No. You got to get a tattoo on your forehead and on your nose and puncture it? No. No. Now, if God tells you to get a tattoo, I guess, but I doubt He will. Is that making sense? So get a journal. Keep your word. Have integrity. And what you write down, you bring to pass. What if you do something that isn't written down? Write it down first, then do it. Does that make sense? If you're not going to do what you wrote, you're going to do something else, you write that down before you do it. Get in the habit. If you write it down, you're going to do it. So if you're doing something that you didn't write down, write it down anyway, then do it. Always write it down, then do it. I don't care what it is. You understand what I'm saying? Get in the habit. You're not doing anything until you've written it down. People say, what'd you do last week? You want to know? Here's what I did. People go, man, you have control. Now, of course, most of the stuff you had no control over, but you have control of what happened. The thing is, if you write it down and you get in the habit of writing it down, you will automatically bring it to what? Bring it to pass. Isn't that cool? Have integrity. What you say you're going to do, you're going to do. Write it down. And if you're going to do something other than what you wrote down, write that down too. And then do it. Do nothing without first writing it down. So when you write something down, it's going to absolutely what? Happen. Just like God. It is what? Written. Now you're on your way to being imitators of who? And you're on your way to be in what? Control. God bless you. You are God's what?
Yes.
Best. That's right.